Hi everyone, Mark from Audio Pursuit. And today I want to delve back into the vintage world, back to the 1980s. And I'm going to speak about the little amplifier that could. Now, behind me here, you see the Adcom 535ii for second generation amplifier. The original 535, along with its bigger brothers, the 545 and the 555, they were all designed by the amazing Nelson Pass. Well, for the second generation, Adcom had its own engineers do some tweaking. The biggest thing is they came up with the triple Darlington stage. And beyond that, some little other adjustments. Now, on the 535, you have an amplifier that is rated at 60 watts per channel. However, in various tests by magazines, both the original 535 and the 535-2, as it's commonly referred to, it was powering up to 90 plus watts per channel into 8 ohms before clipping. This was amazing. Now understand that back in the mid-80s, we were just getting past the monster amplifier era. People were looking at separates. And with Nelson Pass's work, what they got was a series of amplifiers that basically were balls to the walls. These things had all the grunt horsepower that you can imagine. So you had that, you had the raw power coming out of it. Now, what you got out of the 535, and I affectionately like to call this, was the Mini-Sledgehammer. This thing has so much current running through it that, man, when you need slam, you get slam. Just a powerful punch. It'd be like if you've ever watched the videos of Bruce Lee, and he's in position A, he just does a quick flex, pop. That's what the 535 has. And then the 545 has more. 555, the big beast, has a whole ton of it. But this, I nicknamed the Mini-Sledgehammer. And it really lives up to its name. Internally, one of the amazing things about the 535-2 and the original 535 was that it used dual mono power supply. That was unheard of. This was $400 new back then. And when you crack open the lid on this, you see it. Secondly, you feel the weight of it. If there's one thing about Nelson Pass that everybody can testify, his amplifiers are heavy. And this is no exception. This is just, it's surprisingly weighty for its size and what it can do. But boy, let me tell you, you get that slam. Now, when you're dealing with vintage, and you're going to go out and buy and you think, I'd like to try one of these. Main thing you need to do is pop the hood. And you need to look for any leakage in the capacitors. Take your time, get a flashlight, look for that leakage. In this case, this thing still, at nearly 40 years old, is in terrific condition. And you'll see the photos of it. Just a clean design. Now, one of the beauties of the 535-2 and the original 535, and this sounds kind of silly, but I'm a big fan of it, is the toggle switch. Instead of the push button, and some models of Adcoms had the square push button, those wore out. And I would tell you, if you're looking on the used market for one of these, try to find one with a toggle switch. These things last forever. The push buttons wear out. As a matter of fact, I know of a repair shop where when he gets in the Adcoms, he automatically switches out the push button for the toggle switch, because he can get them through a third party, and it makes a big difference. And like I said, they're just tough. They just work forever. So you get the 535-2 hooked up. What's it sound like? Well, I will tell you this. Compared to the original 535, it is quiet. So you get a cleaner sound. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's the cleanest sound as, say, the Parasound 823 amplifier. It isn't. There's some grain. This is, 35, 40 years old. Let's understand that. There's some grain here that, maybe if you went to Hop's Brain, which is the #1 guy who basically takes the Adcoms and goes up to the next level. I've heard one of his 555s after his work's been done, and man, the grain is gone. It's a beautiful sounding piece, but it's not inexpensive to get there. But the guy does great work. So you're going to hear some grain. And the other thing about it is, I would tell you, is that it doesn't play well with horns. I am not a big fan of this hooked up with horns. And I had this amplifier hooked up to some horn speakers some years back, and it just too shouty is basically. It's way too much in your face. So, if you got Klipsch or even older model Paradigm, some of their original monitor series, I would probably take a pass on this unless you get a preamplifier that's tube based. However, when you get such as these LSA Statement 80s that I've been raving about in my last several videos, oh, it's a nice blend. And that's with a very clean and neutral sounding Parasound P5 preamplifier. And so what you get is punchiness. You get a forward sound, at times a little aggressive, if you like that sort of thing. Now, if you have really laid back speakers, and remember in the 1980s, you had a lot of people qualify American speakers as the West Coast sound and the East Coast sound. The West Coast was the JBLs, the Sir-One Vegas, and the East Coast, on the other hand, was Boston Acoustic and Polk Audio. Well, I've heard these with some vintage Polk Audios, and it fits. I've never had the chance to hear them in combo, or hear this in combo with the Boston Acoustics, but I've got to believe, based upon my recollections of Boston Acoustics sound, it would be a better choice to go. For nowadays, I would say you'd want to limit yourself to fabric dome tweeters or folded tweeters. I wouldn't go with a metal tweeter unless you really like it, or if your room is heavily carpeted and there's a lot of room treatments to absorb sound. So keep that in mind. But then again, let your ears do the judgment. But if you find that I've been pretty accurate in describing things over my past videos, that may be a guide for you. The other thing you get with this is, out of the 3 amplifiers, the 535, the 545, and the 555, a lot of people say the 535 is the warmest of the bunch. Maybe, but I wouldn't put my money on it. I think it depends on the other equipment. So what kind of music do you want to listen with this? Well, I'll tell you, I've been on the Dire Straits kick lately, and I would have to say, good combination. Vintage music from the 70s and 80s just really plays well. I was listening to Dave Mason last night, and boy, what a nice combination that was. Then about 3-4 days ago, I had Lucinda Williams on, and she's something special. It's just too bad she's never really hit the mainstream, because she deserves it. Her music is so powerful and so good, and the Adcom fleshes it out, really puts it out there. And that's the way she is. I think she's a very aggressive musician, and the 535 does just that. It brings it out. So Miles Davis was, pretty good. Charles Hayden. Yeah, I actually like that better on these. So you're going forth, and remember, it goes back to, you know, am I getting lost in the music? Is it giving me some passion? Now, the one thing about vintage, inexpensive gear is the fact that I think we get so proud of ourselves for spending so little money that, our appreciation level goes up because of it. We're thinking, oh yeah, listen to what I got for just nothing out of my wallet. So you start feeling really good about that. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about with the 535 too is how it performed with my Magnepan 0.7s. This surprised me. I really thought that even though this has some really good current running through it, that can, give you some slam, that the Maggies would be a bit too much. It would, it would kind of lose its grip on the speakers and become a little tubby and so forth. It didn't. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it had all the aggressive forwardness of when I paired the big GFA-535 2 with it. No, it doesn't. Or even more, the beastly power of my Peachtree Amp 500. But still, it could deliver those short bursts of current, and it was really surprising. And the other thing was, it didn't get hot on top. It stayed very cool, even though I was pushing probably about 90 dB. So this amp has the reserves. It has that capability to power difficult speakers. So let's say you have an older Magnepan MMGs, or was it the SMGs before it? The little small ones. I think you'd find a really good match with this amplifier for them. And boy, you wouldn't be out much money, because let's face it, the MMGs you can find for about $350 to $400 a pair right now. Pick up one of these. You add another, let's say $200 for one in exceptional condition, so you're at $600. You find either the 555, the GFP 555 preamp, or if you get lucky and find the 565, and there is a significant difference, and I'll talk about that in our video, with it for $1,000, and you're running a streaming service, you got a heck of a little system on your hands. Just stunningly good. And with other speakers, hey, let's say you got a pair of Infinities, you're going to sound pretty good there too. I would love to hear this set up with a pair of Celestion SL6 or the SL6SI, because those were a difficult to drive little speaker, because they were a closed box. They were only about 84 dB efficiency. But I gotta believe if these things can handle my Magnepan 0.7s and not heat up, this amplifier would have no problem powering those Celestions. So if you want to get into the vintage world, but you want an amplifier that kicks it up a notch, yet saves you on the budget, and you've got sets of speakers like I described with soft dome tweeters, and just a nice sound to them that maybe they're relaxed for the most part. But guess what? You need an amplifier that can get them a bit aggressive. A little 535 here by Adcom, whether it's first generation or the 535-2 like you see here. Let me tell you, you're going to enjoy what you get. You're going to have fun. Just make sure, crack open the case, look at the capacitors, look around for leakage, take your time, get it hooked up, listen to it, let it play for a while. Sometimes things can be hidden in the first several minutes. So if you're buying it from a private party, let it play for 30 minutes or so. Talk to the person that you're thinking of buying from about different types of music they like and so forth, or concerts they've seen while you're waiting, and see how it does. But if you find a clean one, I think you're going to really enjoy, and your wallet's going to be much happier. So until next time, take care.